already brought a picture up.
Yeah, she came and talked to us. While you were out smoking.
She came and talked to you when?
On the screen while you were smoking?
Okay.
I was scared.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Yes, Allison.
Hello,
Hey,
there you are.
so are you prepared to, and are you ready to start your presentation? Did you want to ask any
Whenever
questions?
you're all ready.
Okay, I think we're ready. So,
Is everybody in place?
yes, ma'am, they are.
Yep.
Okay, great. So, hello everybody. Most of you know me. I think all, or not all of you know me. I think I came down there and did some in-service training for you guys in December. And nice to see you again. With me is today, I'm right, is Jim O'Rourke. His picture's up there as well. Jim is one of our young staff attorneys. He's not so young actually, he probably would dispute that, but he's got 2 young children. And he's going to handle the technology for us. So, first of all, I wanted to thank you all for talking to us about our superintendent search service. I'm very, very proud of the service we have. I have been doing this work for the North Carolina School Board Association myself for 22 years. Before I was at the School Boards Association, I was an attorney at Barrington Smith in Raleigh. I actually worked with Mr. Schwartz there for a lot of the time when I was there, when he was there at the same time. I did some searches when I was at the law firm as well. When I came to the School Boards Association 23 years ago, we did not have a search service, and I started the service because I looked around at other state school board associations in the country and saw that they had the service, and I said, I can do that, I've done it, it makes sense to consolidate it in one place so that you can have continuity of process and candidates. So I've done about 180 searches myself over the last 23 years in North Carolina. I think by far I am personally the most experienced provider of superintendent searches in the country, if not the top one, certainly one of the very top ones. Every time I do a search, I learn something new. We have tried to make it a very professional process. We have worked with most of the school boards in the state, about 80 of the 115, and we have worked with them multiple times because people are happy with our service. We have done Wake County most recently as our largest district, and we've done our smallest districts, and we cater to all. I want to say that our approach is that we are the School Boards Association. We are here to support you as board members. We are very respectful of your role by law in North Carolina as the sole decision maker of who becomes your superintendent. And that is what our legal structure is. As you know, I'm an attorney, as is Jim and the other folks that work with me, so we have the advantage of knowing North Carolina rules and laws and working with those and teaching those all over the state. So let me just say that we have done, as I said, about 180 searches. We did listen to your last presentation, and we have done the last 2 searches in Durham. We've done the last search in Guilford, and I think those folks were very happy with us. And Minnie was on the board. Minnie Fort Brown was on the board in Durham when we did the last several searches for Durham. So the searches that she mentioned were several times ago for Guilford and Durham, but I think Ray and Associates did the most recent one in Charlotte. Those are the ones that I'm aware of that they've done in the state in the last 15 years or so. I've done 180 in the state, just to make it clear about that. I think a question came up about the percentage of in-state versus out-of-state candidates that we see. We normally see about half in-state and half out-of-state. And so the advantage of having us in-state is that we do a national search. I also do teach at the Aspiring Urban Superintendents Program. I recruit nationally. I go to AASA. And we have a number of out-of-state candidates that have accepted positions, including the most current Winston-Salem superintendent, the most current Orange County superintendent. We're working with New Hanover currently. They're getting ready to name someone hopefully later this week. And we just finished Johnston, which is right near you. We really do most of the searches in the state. As a result, we have a pool of candidates that we know are looking. I have relationships I've developed over my 30-plus years of being in North Carolina attorney and also working with school boards across the country. I've been very active in the National School Boards Association. I was on the board of directors, actually, Minnie and I both served together when she was the community representative and I was the legal representative on the National School Boards Association Board of Directors. I've been head of the National Council of School Attorneys. I've been head of the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers, and we have contacts all across the country with the other 36 states that do searches, and that allows us to recruit candidates and get good information about candidates. So I just wanted to let you know a little bit about our service. I have a team of 4 attorneys and 3 support staff that work on searches probably half of their time. It's a very important priority for us. And the other thing I want to say is we are your School Boards Association, and even after your search, we are here to support you with training, with transition services for your new superintendent. And I have encouraged you all in the email we sent out a while ago to call some of the other neighboring school systems that have used our service, and I think you would find them very, very happy. We just, as I said, did Johnston and Carteret most recently, and I think both of those districts were incredibly happy with their service. So we would encourage you to reach out to them too. Another thing that I wanted to go through our process generally. There is, Minnie, as I said, Minnie has been through our process several times as a board member, so she's aware of what we do, and a lot of the things that we do are also things that they had talked about, but we're going to go through our search process. And again, this is the other thing I'm going to say also is this is your process, and that I want to make sure you understand we are very respectful of your role. This is kind of the standard steps that folks use, but we can add and subtract, and our basic fee includes all of the work that we do. So I'm going to talk about all of this. So what our philosophy is that we are here to help you have a professional process to get great candidates and to get good information about the candidates and to leave the decision making to you, which it is by law bestowed on you as the school board. Not to tell you who to hire, but to get you good information. We respect the fact that you all are smart people and you are elected by your constituents to make the decision about who your superintendent would be. And I personally, as a lawyer, don't believe that we should be telling you who to hire, who the best candidates are, that we should be weighing in, that we should be screening. I think that pushes the decision-making to someone else who is not elected to make those decisions. That's a major contrast between us and almost every other search service in the country, that we have a process to help you make the decisions, but we're not telling you who the good candidates are. You all are smart enough to figure that out yourself. And you're the ones that know what your community needs, not somebody from Iowa, or anywhere else, or even Raleigh. I mean, it's not our role to do that. So, and again, it's a very board-centric process. So, the first, it takes about 6 months to do a thorough search if you have the luxury of time. I mean, we could speed that up if necessary, but it takes about 6 months to do a search, and that's from the time you start advertising until the time that you start, that the person shows up. That leaves about a month for the person who's coming in to give notice. If it's someone who can give notice more quickly, then you can have that person show up a little bit earlier, but generally, professional folks give about a month's notice from when they're leaving. So I'm going to sort of talk you through the steps. Normally, we recommend about 6 to 8 weeks of advertising and recruiting. We do recruiting all across the country. I talk to people all the time. As I said, I've gone to AASA job fairs and recruited for our searches. I found it to be very, very helpful to do that. I'm one of the leaders, I think, and I've been the head of the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers, and I am very committed to making our process, if not the best in the country, certainly one of the best. So we recommend 6 to 8 weeks of advertising. 8 weeks is good because you really pretty much get your maximum amount of applicants before then. 6 weeks and you start to lose people, not to get as many. But we draft sample documents for you. You can change them how you wish. But again, we do recruiting in the time that you're advertising. We would come to you with the documents, you would approve them, we would get started. We do have most advertising that we do free. We have contacts throughout the state of North Carolina and nationally. We put out information that is free to all of our sister state school boards associations that do this work, which is 36, almost a few of the ones out west don't do it, but everybody in this area does. And then we post it on our website, we send it out to all the superintendents and all of the HR people in the state. So we blanket North Carolina very thoroughly, in addition to the national recruiting. Next slide, Jim. So during that time is when we recommend you get stakeholder input. We don't recommend you stop and don't advertise until you get surveys and forums and all that stuff done, because it would just add to the time that it would take to do the search. So in the time when you're looking to advertise, what the board is generally doing is getting input from staff and community, having public forums, having the public comments at your board meetings, and then developing your profile. And we would assist you with all of that. Part of our service is to have online surveys. We're working with Chapel Hill right now. We're up to what, 3,000, Jim? You just shake your head. 3,000 surveys from Chapel Hill. Very involved community. But we actually, they helped us translate that into 7 different languages because they have that many people from all over the world in Chapel Hill. So we would certainly do that as part of our service. You can hold public forums. We've actually, with Chapel Hill, we were just doing them online because they're still not holding in-person meetings. And obviously you don't want a crowd to come to a meeting under the circumstances. So we have done online optional forums for them. We're seeing that the surveys are more popular because people don't have to come out under those circumstances. And people are more comfortable doing surveys because they don't have to publicly appear. Some people are just not comfortable doing that. But we take all that information, we bring it to the board with any public comment or organizational statements. That's another thing that we encourage. If your Chamber of Commerce wants to meet as an organization and develop an organizational statement, we do encourage that. Or if your Council of Churches or your NAACP or any of your other organizations in the community want to submit an organizational statement, PTAs, those kinds of things, principals, organizations, they can do that. We do recommend separate community and staff surveys. We have several options for you to use, some simpler surveys and some more detailed surveys that are more nuanced. Remember what surveys are. They're an opportunity for people to say something to the board if they want to. It's not a scientific process where you sample randomly folks and get some scientific information. This is an opportunity for your community and staff to be heard, and we like to see how the staff differs from the community in terms of their concerns. We think that's helpful for the board. Then we will work with the board after you get the survey input and all the other input, and we present it to you. We will work with you to develop your leadership profile based on the input of all of these organizations. And we will, as I said, we will compile it all. You will see everything we get. One of the most helpful things we do on our surveys is have an open-ended part where people can say what's in their hearts, even if it's not asked about in the surveys. And then we take that information that's presented, we redact out the personnel information. This is where being lawyers helps. We redact out the information that is by law confidential. So the board will see everything, but we will prepare a public version of it to be able to be handed out to your community and your staff and your press so that folks can see the input. It's a public record, except the personnel comments. So that's what you're doing while your advertisement is out there and we're talking to stakeholders, we're talking to candidates. I will say we do encourage that whoever you choose, that you have all communication go to the search consultants, because it's not helpful for people to be lobbying the board individually. That puts you in a very uncomfortable place. And it's important for the board, all the board members, to get all the information at the same time and not have people trying to lobby one board member or another. That just divides the board. We're very cognizant of making this a process where the board comes together and the board works together, and everybody gets the same information, and we really do commend that to the board. Next slide, please. So the one decision you have to make about schedule is when the applications are due. As I said, usually it's about 8 weeks if you have the luxury of time. What we do is we collect and organize and prepare all the materials. We're very careful to preserve candidate confidentiality. Under North Carolina law, all of that information is highly protected, and it is a criminal misdemeanor to release confidential information. We then prepare other documents. We have what we call an experience chart that kind of pulls out the level of experience someone has had, where they work, what size of district they've worked at, and we have other materials that help the board be able to process the materials. We post those materials to a secure online site for you to review. We give you everything. We also do, for every candidate, we do a background search on the internet for anything that is public about that candidate's experience, whether they've been superintendent of the year, like Dr. Merrill has been, or whether they have left with a resignation and buyout, or whether they have certain issues in their community, their lawsuits going on. We do that on every single candidate, and we give that information to you. For sitting superintendents, that can be quite extensive, but that's also covered by our fee. And it's helpful because when you're looking at applications, you'll be looking at information that the candidate chose to submit. We pull other information for you so you have a bigger picture of what the public persona of that person is right from the beginning. That allows you to screen. So we don't screen and we don't recommend candidates for a very simple reason. That's, by law, your job. And we don't want to take away the decision-making or influence your decision-making. You are the ones who know what you need. And we don't push you towards any particular candidates. I will say, and I do want to make this point too, the question came up about diversity of candidates. We have a really great track record of having a fair and open process, not a system where the people we know get pushed forward before the people we don't know, or the people that we have a personal relationship with gets pushed forward before others. I think that's the danger in screening candidates. We have an incredible track record in North Carolina in our service of placing somewhere between 40 and 60%, 40 and 50% of minority candidates in the searches that we do, and the same with women. We have a process that doesn't prefer anybody be based on their race or sex, but it is open, and one of the things I'm the proudest of is that we have an open process that has allowed the best candidates to rise to the top, and it's because we don't screen and recommend. Our boards are incredibly fair and open to whomever is the best candidate, and we don't think that anybody should be influencing that. So that's something I'm very passionate about. So we do collect and give you all this additional information that we collect and post it online for you to look at. Next slide, please, Jim. As I said, we provide what's called an experience chart. We do the internet searches. We also get the recent district test scores of that district where that person is coming from, so that you can see how they've been achieved. We know student achievement is a huge issue, and you want to know whether someone has a track record of helping improve student performance. And then we compile a custom rating charts based on your profile. We also take your profile and develop questions to help you get at some of the issues that are important to you. Next slide, please. So one of the things we do is take the burden off of the board of having to do a lot of the background work, especially the board chair. And so we facilitate the selection process, but we communicate with candidates. We go to meetings, we attend meetings, and we work with you on who you want to choose as your people to interview. We'll schedule the interviews, but we don't tell you who to interview. Again, it's your job to make those decisions, but we will facilitate the selection process and participate in your meetings as the facilitators. We communicate with candidates, we schedule interviews, we coordinate the logistics for interviews, those kinds of things. We take the administrative burden off of you. We again, North Carolina attorneys, we ensure proper meeting notice and compliance with the open meetings law. We're not your attorneys. You have an attorney who's your attorney to give you legal advice. We don't do that, but we know what the rules are. We provide sample interview questions, work with you on selecting interview questions. We put together notebooks for the interviews. Again, we don't sit in on the interviews because what I think is improper is for anyone to think that someone else is making the decision besides the board members. So we don't want to give the impression that we have a vote, because we don't, and we don't want one, and it's not appropriate for us to have. So I think that we try to very clearly make all the candidates and the board members understand that we are not the decision makers. We do record the minutes if we're facilitating closed sessions. We suggest everyone be out of there, but the board members, sometimes the board attorney sits in, but that would be it. I mean, and again, helping us facilitate stuff. We do recommend you keep it out of the central office completely, in terms of once the candidates have submitted their information, the identity of who those people are should be strictly confidential with just the people who have a need to know, and that would be the board's attorney and you all and us. And keep it, and that's why we do all of that work. Okay, so the initial interviews happen, next slide please, and normally boards select between 7 and 10 folks to interview. That's about what we recommend. So 7, if you have much less than 7, you might feel like you don't have a choice. If you have more than 10, you're going to be overwhelmed interviewing those people. But we do suggest that if you, and you can go less than that if you want to, but you want to make sure you have enough folks that you feel like you're getting a good cross section. And I've sometimes had the last person selected be interviewed to be the person that was ultimately the choice, because there are interpersonal issues that are really important, and that's why you do interviews, is to make sure that that's a good fit with the board personally as well as professionally. So the thing that we do, so you narrow it down usually after your first interviews, you will narrow it down to finalists. We recommend at least 3 finalists, because if you have 2 and 1 drops out, then you're not going to have a choice left. So usually boards choose 3, sometimes they choose 4, occasionally we have them choose 5. We do call professional references. One of the advantages to having us as the School Boards Association is to, because we know everyone in the state. I mean, I work with every single board member in the state. Every single school system in the state is a member of our association. I know and have actually placed a lot of the superintendents. The majority of the superintendents have come through the process that we have. We probably do an average of 70% of the searches in the state. So I know the superintendents in the state, and if I need references from them, they're usually very honest with me. One of the most critical things is those relationships allow me to call folks and tell them, I need you to be honest. If I was doing a search for you, you would want everyone to be honest with you, and so those relationships really help. I can also call people from all the other states that we work with, and that's 36 of them that have a service, plus I can call other folks through my other associations with the school attorneys and the search service and NSBA, and get honest references. We always include the attorneys as a reference to make sure there's no legal problems, and then we usually call several of the board members. If somebody's not a superintendent, we'll call their supervisors. And we go back at least 5 years. So if someone's been in another district for only 2 years, we will go back to their other districts till we get to 5 years to make sure that we have everything. If there's something we need to follow up on, we will do that. And so we try to be incredibly thorough. I think the most important thing is for you all not to be surprised. And even if there are issues in someone's background, if you really like the person, you need to be aware of them. Years ago, there was a district that we weren't doing the search for. One of these larger national firms was doing the search, and they made their finalists public, which is not what we recommend. But the board chairman was quoted in the newspaper. He got a call from the news reporter. The news reporter said, are you aware that one of your finalists just got bought out? And he said, no, this is the first I've heard of it. That search firm did not do their job. Because you should never have a surprise like that where the newspaper's calling you up and sharing information. You should know. So we do go back and update our background checks on folks, and we also do a very thorough reference process. We do arrange for legally compliant criminal credit background checks. We have a service that we work through that's out of Durham that actually does a lot of these national groups too. That is an additional cost, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, the cost, but it's what you arrange, and we have some options for you. We only recommend you do that on the finalists because obviously there's an added expense. But we also get salary information, contract information, evaluations from the finalists. We get a lot of other information that allows us to evaluate them. If you can get a reference where someone is glowing, but if you go back and see the evaluations they got in prior years, that tells you that maybe someone's not being as forthcoming in their references they might be. So we get, again, a lot of good information for you to get a decision. All right, next step. So once you get all that information, we will schedule, coordinate, and staff, meaning us, we staff the interviews again. The final interviews, we do, so usually we recommend at least 2 interviews because, and the second interview will be more oriented towards things wanted to follow up on with those candidates. And we'll help you with all those questions. So we really do, we draft things, we change them how you want them, it's your search, we're really adamant about that, but we do give you stuff to work with, like drafts of things. And we'll help discuss the references, make sure you have everything you need to make a decision. Okay, next step. Selection and contract negotiations. We do, again, facilitate the meeting where we select someone. We'll send final regrets and offer sample contracts. And we will assist the board and board attorney as needed during contract negotiations, but this is the time when your board attorney needs to take over and negotiate contracts. I was surprised to hear that the other search firm facilitates that. It's not legal to be basically practicing law without a license. So to the extent that they become your advocate, I think they have to be very, very careful. And so I would suggest to you that your board attorney, and you have a board attorney who's very, very experienced in negotiating contracts and getting the best deal for his boards and making sure people come on board. And so that, by law, I think needs to be turned over to the board attorney to do the contract negotiations. Next, we provide sample press releases, we assist with scheduling public votes, we compile minutes from all the meetings that we have attended. We do not recommend the board assistant be in there, puts them in a really, really difficult position. So briefly, I'm going to go over why us. I think I said some of these things before. Actually, this is 22 years now for me personally of consulting on these issues. I think we have developed, if not the best search service in the country, certainly one of the best. And I don't say that egotistically, I've just gotten a lot of good feedback about from our clients. I think we have a really high level of happiness with our service. And I would encourage you to talk to any of the other boards we've worked with. We're up to, I think we just added Samson since we sent this out and did this, but I mean, Scotland, but I think we're about at 180. Superintendent searches that I've done, and about 80 of the systems now that we have in Scotland. We have not done you all before, but we are currently working with the Chapel Hill Carborough schools, the Martin County schools, the New Hanover County schools, which hopefully will be making a decision, as I said, this week, and Scotland. We just finished working with all of these others. So Winston-Salem, Washington, Orange, Nash, Jones, Johnston, we just finished a few weeks ago, Davie County, Carteret, Ashboro. You can see we're all over the state, and we are, and we have a process that allows us to do, and we have enough people that allow us to do up to 10 searches at a time, or even more if we have to, but I have additional people. I have a staff of 8 attorneys, and including me, and we have enough staff that we are able to do whatever it takes to get the job done. So I'm very proud of, again, the service that we provide. We do, one of the reasons we like charging a flat fee is because we want you to feel free to ask for us to do things differently, or we don't want to charge by piece. We want to make sure that you feel like you can get whatever you need. If you're not satisfied with the pool, if you're not satisfied with the candidates you have, we will go back and find you some more candidates. We're with you till you're happy. even if that means we have to go back in and start the process over again. We hope that doesn't happen, but occasionally it has happened, and there's not an extra charge for that. So we want to be sure about that. And again, we do not provide legal advice to you, even though we are attorneys. That's the role of your board attorney, and I'm very familiar with respecting that and where the line is. But we do have a lot of legal expertise in what the statutes say, in the confidentiality of personal laws, open meetings, public records. I teach on these issues to the state school boards and superintendents all the time. Employment discrimination issues, things you can and can't ask. There are rules regarding federal background law checking that we honor. And then also superintendent contracts, we can provide samples. So I just feel like I think it's pretty clear we're the most experienced. And again, as I said, we are part of a very broad national network that allows me to recruit and find out information about candidates, and we feel like we have a network in place that is second to none nationally. The last thing I wanted to say, which is not a part of this PowerPoint, is the cost. I was listening, as I said, to the prior folks, and they said their facility fees $20,000, ours is $21,500, but they have all these other costs. It added up, when I added that up, to about $28,600, and we basically are estimate of what your cost would be, in addition to the other things that we would recommend, around no more than $25,000. So actually, we're a little bit less expensive. We would recommend a few things that you add on to for extra cost. Advertising, we only think you need about depends on whether you want to advertise, but $750 is really, or around that $800 is around what we recommend, maybe up to $1,000. But most of the stuff we can do free on the internet with our fellow school boards associations and other folks. So we would actually be a little bit less expensive based on their estimations. And we do, if there are extra costs, we would bring that to the board and have them specifically approve them, because we don't want any surprises on that. And I will say the other thing about COVID-19 and how we've been able to manage, we have switched on a dime and been able to deal with all online searches. We've had several. Johnston was completely online. They did not bring any of the candidates in. We had New Hanover, where they brought the candidates. They had online services, online interviews, the first set, and then they brought the folks in the second set, the finalists. So, we are completely flexible. I have very technologically adept people like Jim that work with me that can make anything happen online. And so we are very, very proud of what we've been able to do this spring. We didn't miss a beat. We, as I said, got Johnston through their process, New Hanover through their process, Carteret through their process. And so we're working with Chapel Hill. So anyway, we're very, very happy. We just had an email pop up just now by the Carteret County Board Chair saying, we wanted to thank you for our wonderful new superintendent. That was very timely. They are very happy because they got one of the best superintendents in the state. So we will work our hearts out for you. That's the other thing I will say. We are here, we're close by. We work for you and with you, even when we're not doing the superintendent search. We are here to support you, help you with training. We have a transition service that we help to mentor a new superintendent if they've not been a superintendent before, or somebody from out of state. We can offer that to you. And I just develop really close relationships with folks as they're looking to switch jobs. And folks know me. And I talk to candidates a lot of the time and give them career advice, but I don't tell you who I recruit for you, because I think that would be influencing your decision. I will get you good people, and I'll do my very best, and again, but I don't want to tell you who I recruited, because I think that pushes you in their direction when that's not what we want to do. We want you to be objective and fair, an objective and fair process. And I told you the results of that have been objective and fair candidates and an objective and fair hiring process, and that has resulted in women and minorities having an equal chance, not to to promote them more than others, but to give them an equal chance. And I don't think there's another search service in the country, the Illinois State School Board Association, that has the numbers we have of minority and female candidates, because we let them rise to the top. I think that's, Jim, is there anything I am missing? I would be delighted to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Allison. Excuse me. Board members, anybody have questions for Allison? No questions? That must mean you did a pretty thorough job of presenting then. Thank you.
I tried to. I don't know what makes me wonder if I hope you guys will consider, really encourage you to talk to your neighbors and about this process, because I think they have been very happy. As I said, we do most of the searches in the state. It's because we are very well regarded by our members, and that they have appreciated the process. As I did point out, that we've done the last 2 searches in Durham, Ray did one before that, and we ended up having the last 2 searches. So, you know, I think we've shown our excellence by our work, and we care about you, and we're here for you, and we'll be glad to do anything we can.
Okay.
I do have something.
I'm
quick.
sorry.
I just wanted to confirm that when you said you don't, obviously don't want to influence our decision-making, do you give us a group of candidates to look at? And in that group, have you narrowed it down any yourself? Or is that something you want us to do?
No, making a decision for you. What we do is give you all of the information online with tools that, like the experience chart. If you say if you want a superintendent who has experience, what we'll do is we'll give you this experience chart, and you can see exactly who those people are. So we don't tell you this person is better than this person. We say, here's your data about who's who.
Okay.
And we can do it however you want. If you want more information about those candidates, we can pull that out. But in terms of us screening people out for you, I think that goes into the decision-making realm. Again, we give you tools to screen people out yourselves based on the criteria you tell us to pull out.
Got it. Thank you.
So does that mean that if you get 60 applicants, you would be sending all 60 applications to us?
Again, they're online. We won't be sending them because that would be a lot of paper. We used to have paper, but we will be making them available for you online with information about each one. And it is a lot of work, no matter who you send, but what happens if you have people screening is that friends or people that those people prefer end up being your finalists. And we think that screens out a lot of really strong minority and female candidates. And so that's why we don't do it. Because we feel like that influences the decision, and you all have the ability and you're elected to make those decisions. So again, 60 is a lot. 60 is sending off everybody who's in your pool. That's not the way we do it. 60 is, we had over 40 in New Hampshire, and that was a lot. But again, you know, we had an experience chart, and here are your experienced superintendents, and here are your people who don't have experience, and here's what their experience is. And we actually put them in groups the way we post them, so that the experienced superintendents will be first, from in-state, and then the experienced superintendents from out-of-state, and then people who have been assistant superintendents in-state and then out-of-state. So that if you're looking for a particular group of people, those will be the people with most experience will be at the top of the applications that we see. Does that make sense?
Okay. Anything else from Ms. Shaper? Okay, Allison, thank you very much for your presentation.
It was great to see all of you. We look forward to hearing from you. If we can help you, let us know. If not, you're still going to be our members, and we still care about you and want to do everything we can to support you. So we wish you well in this process, and we're here to support you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody got any comments they want to make? I mean, we need a motion to approve the agenda, number 1.
So moved. A second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. It's time for the, if you have any comments, that,
Are we not gonna vote on this today,
do
or?
you, is it the wishes of the board? I mean, have you got your minds that you know which direction you wanna go? I mean, I came prepared to vote once I heard the presentations, but I already read through all of them. Hello?
If we do, we're gonna have to amend the agenda for an action item, right?
Do what now?
If we do have to vote, if we do decide to vote, won't we have to
You have
amend
to amend the agenda, yes.
amend the agenda to make an action item?
Right.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking, do you want to, because we do have to amend the agenda.
So you're up to board member comments now, or are you just discussing?
Well, we're just gonna have, is it proper to have discussion before we have comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Sir?
You may, yes.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to ask, is it appropriate for Dr. Merrill to answer the questions that we had asked him, before we got started with the second, presentation?
I was not in here, so I don't know what questions you asked him, but I don't see why it wouldn't be. But you didn't hear the questions either, did you?
No, I did not.
Richard?
Well, the first question was, I asked because I had asked, the Ray and Associates about, not a public forum. I was asking about the opportunity for the public to meet maybe our top 3 or top 2 candidates. And she was saying that, and Dr. Merrill did say to me, and those that were in here, that whatever we do, we have to let the candidates know that up front. Whether we're going to ask them to do a panel discussion with community representatives that attend or not. And then I was asking him about his experience, because evidently he has experienced both situations. And so that's what we were waiting to talk about when everybody came back into the room, or after this was over. So I'd just like to hear his comments.
I mean, I don't have any problem,
That's fine,
Yeah.
if you wanna go ahead.
Yeah, I think notifying the board, making a decision at the early start of the process about whether any part of it will be public for the candidates is important for you and the candidates. I think it can affect your pool. Now, this is clearly, in my opinion, having been a candidate in both situations, some strong, current, satisfied superintendents who may have a better opportunity with you might not want their folks to know that they're an applicant. Because if there are 3 that will be public, then 2 lose and 2 are instantly lame ducks with their own board. And that makes it difficult, because my board never looks at me the same if they know that I tried and lost. I don't care how much I say I'm recommitted to Wayne County or anywhere else. It's just not the same. So I do believe that sometimes you get some folks to apply if they know that it's confidential all the way through, that you might otherwise lose. But what I was saying a little bit to Ven too, I think each community is different, and each board has to decide whether prior experience, things you need to air out publicly with the community, you need to restore trust, whatever it might be, you might determine that you need some public aspect as well, whether it's a panel, whether it's interviews with different groups, and that would be for you to determine whether that's an important piece that you would want to consider. So
I think that we could actually do something like that without the candidates involved. In other words, we could find out community issues. We could find out what the community thinks, if we wanted to, what they think we should be looking for in a new superintendent. Now, whether I think that should apply or not, I mean, it's our job to hire the new superintendent. It's not the community's job to hire the new superintendent. I mean, we can take input and decide whether or not that input affects our decision-making, but it's ultimately our choice. And having found out that North Carolina has the rule where you don't give out the names of applicants, that it is an anonymous type situation, I personally think we ought to keep it that way, because as Dr. Merrill has stated, I think it would increase our chances of having a more robust pool of applicants if we did that. My
I
opinion
don't
only.
disagree, but there's gonna be a process in the process where the community has some input,
Right.
but not necessarily one-on-one with any of the candidates, because that takes the confidentiality
Exactly.
part out of it, and that's
Exactly.
probably one thing that a lot of the applicants who may apply are in favor of, simply because they're in place somewhere else, so.
Well, I'm not asking for the community to make the decision. Now, I don't know about the law in North Carolina. I got an attorney here that can tell me. But, we didn't make the decision when they hired the president of Wayne Community College. But the two top candidates did take time out to come, and the public was invited. It was announced in the newspaper, so I didn't get a special invitation because of serving on the board. I just was informed in the newspaper, and I went. They talked about themselves, and then if there were any questions, they went through someone. We had to write them out on a card. They went through a person, the questions were asked, and then we heard the answers. Now, personally, I'm gonna say that this board is not in a good situation right now. We don't have the trust of the community. They are not happy with us as a 7-member board, period. They don't pull out anybody. Last night I read some comments, and it was just about questions about virtual or Plan B. But in those comments, the word was the board. Why did the board? The board. So I'm just saying, we need to build some trust, and at least telling us what you want is not the same thing as seeing a person face to face.
I agree.
Now, if that's not-
That's what I said,
if
yes,
that's not-
absolutely.
No, I'm saying on a piece of paper, they're telling you what they want in a superintendent. They don't know that they're gonna get it. And this is just a strong thing for me, but I can go with the board. If the board decides that we're gonna do it privately, then we're gonna do it privately. But I put the question out there because until she made a comment about it, I did not realize that people were concerned about it being public or private. See, our superintendent went to Florida. He knew it was public, but he went anyway. So I do agree with Dr. Merrill. If we decide as a board that it's gonna be a private, then that we have to follow that. But I did wanna put it out there on the floor to see how others felt.
Well, both of these groups, both of these superintendent search companies have both said that they want to do surveys, but they've also said that it's up to us whether or not we want input from students or teachers or principals and vice principals or community groups, or it's up to us to decide.
I know, but you didn't hear me. I have no problem with the surveys. I
Right.
think the surveys should be done whether it is a private or a public selection process.
Oh,
Okay.
I agree with that, but I think we should keep the confidentiality of our applicants.
At the end of the
Just
day,
that.
at the end of the day, we're gonna have to
Confidential.
make the decision
I know
of who
that.
we pick as a superintendent, and that has to be a private decision. But leading up to that, I have no problem taking public opinion and listening to the public as to what they'd like to see or what they wanted. But after that, it's over. We can't have people, stakeholders from the community sitting in these meetings with us, because then they're helping us choose the candidate.
No. I'm not asking for them to sit in the meetings.
Okay,
I'm asking for us to have a public forum with our final 2 candidates or final 3 candidates, where the public would not even come in here. We used, for the Wayne Community College president, they used not the large auditorium, they used a smaller auditorium. And people came in, it was full, but it was not overcrowded, okay? So people who were interested came, and you heard what they had to say, and that was it. Dr. Merrill said he experienced where the three candidates came into a public meeting and it was just like a debate. I guess they each got to respond to the questions that were asked. But the questions that were asked, I don't think came through the audience didn't stand up and ask the questions. The moderator asked the questions. So that's how you maintain control. But, I'm hearing the response, so.
Okay, any other conversation about that? Mr. Henderson?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm in agreement with, Ms. Burton. Because of the reputation that we as a board fully have, I think it is important that we look at some form of involvement by the public. I'm not gonna say that it's got to be, the interviews or whatever, but the public needs to have some input in this entire process. That's all
I don't disagree with you at all, but I think both firms that presented today, there's extensive input from the community, stakeholders, teachers, students. There's a place in every process, each process for each company, where we will have extensive interaction with the community as far as meetings, forums with the board to let us know what their wishes are, what their hopes for a superintendent, what their long-term goals for Wayne County Public Schools are. There's plenty of room for public input. But I just think it's important. This board has experienced firsthand the so-called, what is it, Richard, sunshine rule, sunshine state or whatever. I mean, that's not a good situation for applicants for positions. And I think we're gonna limit some of the applicants we get based on the fact that it's not gonna be confidential, because some of them are acting superintendents in districts and have interest in going other places and they don't want that out. So, I mean, I completely understand that, but.
Well, my concern is that we get the absolute best applicant we can get. And in your opinion, Dr. Merrill, you're gonna get the best shot at that with a private,
It's my opinion, yes, sir.
then
It may not be right, but that's my opinion.
yes. It makes sense.
I think the public will have extensive input into the search process.
I want you all to understand one thing. There's a difference. And I hear Dr. Merrill, and I really do want the best candidate. I think we deserve it after all that we've gone through.
Amen.
But there is a difference in input on paper and somebody looking at the top three candidates and hearing them face to face. They might not be face to face. It might be a Zoom thing, and you run it through. Or you submit your questions, what you want to have answered, or we can use the input to determine what those questions are. But I do think that there's a difference in input and seeing the final 3-2 candidates. I'm finished.
Okay. Is it the wishes of the board, do you want to let's put this back on the agenda and vote on which firm we use today? Since we're the 6 that are in attendance,
Well, our next meeting is next week, right?
Monday.
Monday night.
What's that? We could put it on the agenda for Monday with Jennifer here.
Well, did Jennifer hear the interview? Did she hear the presentations?
I don't care what you do. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, let's put it to a vote. What board, how many want to vote today on the presentations we heard today? Everybody wants to vote, raise your right hand. Anybody that wants to wait until Monday? Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda today to include a selection of the superintendent firm, search firm.
Do we have a motion to amend the agenda to
And that would be adding
include-
that to, as item 3B, 3 Bravo.
Okay. Item 3B, the motion's been made to add item 3B to the agenda under board action to vote for the superintendent search firm. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Now do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Now, any motions from the floor for preferences on search firms?
You wanna go, Van?
I thought he was fixing to speak.
Well, go ahead.
I'm looking at everybody's face.
Okay, I was actually, I think both presentations were very well done today. I think they both have experience in doing this, but in listening to both of these things, both groups, I just felt like the NCSBA had the advantage overall in experience. And to me, Allison just seemed like she was extremely well prepared, versed, knowledgeable. And I personally, when I talked about what my top two choices were last week, I had them first, and I had Ray and Associates second, and I think I'm gonna stick with that.
Is that in the form of a motion?
You making a motion that we choose NS?
I would, I'll make a motion that we vote to choose the North Carolina School Board Association as our search for superintendent firm.
I second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay, so we got 5-1 vote to use the North Carolina School Board Association for our search firm. That being said, comments, Dr. DeMarco?
To reiterate what Wade said, I thought both of the presentations were pretty good. Not to mention we're saving money, I believe, with North Carolina School Board Association. And they definitely have the experience to help us out. But that's all I have.
All right, Mr. Henderson?
No comment.
Ms. Burden?
No comment.
Mr. Latham?
Said all I need to say?
Mr. Falk?
Can we get a link on our website to that? I have read it.
Okay. No, I just saw it, just something I wanted to share with y'all.
Yeah, I had read it before, I
Well-
just thought it'd be good for the public to read it.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Who's asking?
This CDC COVID-19.
So it's one of the most recent
Oh.
things they put out.
Had recent
so
CDC guidelines.
I'll share it with you. I just read this and I just thought you may be
Oh,
interested.
that's fine. I just didn't know you had passed out.
Is that all you have, Mr. Falk?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have any comments. I think, well, I do have one comment. I think the North Carolina School Board Association will do a thorough job, and they do a good job. Obviously, they've got the experience, and especially being right here in North Carolina, I think that they'll serve our purpose well. With that said, Dr. Merrill, do you have anything, sir? Need a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Meeting's adjourned.